Since the moment man opened his eyes to his own existence, he has been haunted by a shadow. Not the shadow of hunger, war, or death, but a more insidious one he himself weaves, nurtures, and in secret, learns to love. Suffering. What if I told you that the pain you carry is not a burden imposed by fate, but a choice you embrace, a narrative you write day after day? Fyodor Dostoevsky, the Russian master who plunged into the depths of the soul, did not see suffering as a mere human condition. For him, it was an addiction, a poison we take willingly, an altar where we sacrifice our potential. In his works, such as Notes from Underground and Crime and Punishment, he dissected the human psyche and revealed an uncomfortable truth. Many of us are not just sad. We are addicted to the story we tell ourselves, a story of victimhood, stagnation, and self-inflicted pain. Today, in a world of chronic anxiety, social media that amplifies lamentation, and a culture that glorifies fragility, Dostoevsky's warning is more urgent than ever. In this essay, we will embark on a journey to the heart of Dostoevsky's warning. First, we will uncover the 4 pillars that sustain the addiction to suffering, the invisible chains you may not even realize you carry. Then, we will reveal 4 principles to break these chains and rebuild your life with purpose, clarity, and power. This is not a video for fleeting comfort. It is a map to escape the underground you have built and reclaim the freedom that has always been within your reach. Prepare yourself. What follows demands courage, but it can change everything. First pillar, pain as identity. You do not suffer because life is cruel. You suffer because your identity has fused with pain. Dostoevsky, in Notes from Underground, presents the underground man, who defines himself by his bitterness and self-loathing. He does not merely accept pain, but cultivates it as proof of his depth. Carl Jung complements this, suggesting that the ego clings to fixed narratives to maintain the illusion of control, even if they are destructive. Neuroscientifically, confirmation bias reinforces this trap. The brain seeks evidence to confirm the narrative of suffering, ignoring alternative paths. Thus, pain is no longer an event. It is who you are. Consider Prometheus, the Greek titan who stole fire from the gods to give it to humanity. As punishment, Zeus chained him to a rock where an eagle devoured his liver every morning, only for it to regenerate at night. But imagine that, over time, Prometheus began to define himself by this pain. He is no longer the fire-bearer, the cosmic rebel, but merely the eternal sufferer. The rock, the chains, the eagle. They become his story. He could cry out for liberation, but in secret, he fears losing the meaning that pain gives him. Today, we see this on social media, where people build personas based on their struggles. The anxious, the betrayed, the failure. Each post reinforces the narrative. At work, someone who failed a project may label themselves as incompetent, rejecting growth opportunities to protect this identity. In relationships, the broken heart becomes a badge, a reason to avoid new connections. To break this pillar, audit your narrative. Write the story you tell about yourself and ask, which parts of this define me by pain? Challenge the label. Replace "I am a failure" with "I am learning," and repeat it for 7 days. Seek contradictions. List 3 moments when you overcame difficulties and use them to rewrite your identity. Second pillar, the seduction of inertia. You are not trapped by a lack of options. You are trapped because inertia is comfortable. Dostoevsky argued that man prefers known suffering to the uncertainty of freedom. In The Grand Inquisitor, he suggests that freedom is terrifying because it demands responsibility. Neuroscience confirms the brain prefers comfort zones, even negative ones, because they require less metabolic energy. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, observed that suffering without purpose is unbearable. But with purpose, it can be transcended. Inertia, however, makes us reject purpose in favor of stagnation. In the 5th century BC, Athens faced the plague. As the city crumbled, many citizens surrendered to despair, refusing heroic or practical actions because nothing mattered. But Thucydides, the historian, noted that some, like the doctors who risked their lives, broke through inertia. They had no guarantee of success, but they chose to act, finding meaning in chaos. The city, with its golden temples and fetid streets, became a mirror of the soul. Some drowned in paralysis, others forged purpose. Inertia manifests today when you postpone that course, avoid confronting a toxic boss, or ignore the voice calling for change. On social media, it's the endless scroll that replaces action with distraction. To break this pillar, start with micro-actions. Choose a small task, like 5 minutes of reading, and do it now. Repeat for 3 days. Visualize the cost. Write how your life will be in 5 years if nothing changes, and read it daily. Break the cycle. Set a deadline for an important decision and stick to it. Third pillar, the hidden pleasure in self-destruction. You do not suffer by accident. You find pleasure in destroying yourself. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov torments himself not out of guilt, but because pain validates his existence. Jung spoke of the shadow impulse, where we embrace destructive aspects to feel alive. Neuroscientifically, dopamine released during moments of self-sabotage, like procrastinating or giving in to anger, reinforces the behavior. It's an addictive cycle. Pain gives us a false sense of control. Icarus, the young man who flew with wings of wax, did not fall merely from disobedience. He knew the sun would melt his wings, yet he flew higher, seduced by his own ruin. The blue sky, the cutting wind, the rising heat, all drew him to his fall. He did not just want to fly. He wanted to test the limits, even if it meant his destruction. Today, this appears when we sabotage relationships out of fear of intimacy, or when we choose chaos, like arguments online, over calm. It's the pleasure of saying, "I knew it would go wrong," after failing. In careers, it's the employee who avoids promotions because they fear they don't deserve them, finding perverse satisfaction in self-proclaimed failure. To break this pillar, identify the trigger. Note the exact moment you sabotage yourself and what you feel. Replace the pleasure. Find a positive action that generates dopamine, like exercise or writing. Confront the shadow. Ask, what do I gain by destroying myself? And be honest. Fourth pillar, the attachment to misery as proof of humanity. You cling to misery because you believe it proves you are human. Dostoevsky saw suffering as a currency for authenticity. In The Brothers Karamazov, Ivan questions whether pain is the price of consciousness. But he warns, this belief can trap us. Frankl said that the meaning of life transcends suffering, but many seek it in pain to feel real. Neuroscientifically, suffering activates brain areas linked to empathy, creating an illusion of connection with others. In the Middle Ages, flagellants roamed villages whipping themselves, believing pain made them purer, more human. Under gray skies, with muddy streets and the sound of whips, they saw themselves as martyrs. But their misery brought no redemption. It only reinforced the belief that pain was their sole proof of worth. Today, this manifests in the culture of victimhood. On social media, posting about your pain earns likes and empathy, reinforcing the idea that to suffer is to be human. In relationships, some refuse to move past traumas because they fear losing the depth pain gives them. To break this pillar, redefine humanity. List 3 qualities of yours that don't depend on suffering, like creativity or courage. Disconnect from validation. For 1 week, avoid sharing your pain online and observe how you feel. Seek active meaning. Do something altruistic, like helping someone, to find value beyond pain. So far, we have uncovered the chains that bind you to suffering. Pain as identity, the seduction of inertia, the pleasure in self-destruction, and the attachment to misery as proof of humanity. You have learned to recognize the underground Dostoevsky described, the prison you built yourself. But recognizing the chains is not enough to break them. This was only the diagnosis. Now, we enter a more dangerous, more powerful territory. The principles to forge your freedom. The lessons that follow are not for those content with the surface. They demand courage, discipline, and the will to rebuild your life from the ashes. First principle, the choice of responsibility. You are not a victim of fate. You are the architect of your freedom. Dostoevsky, in Crime and Punishment, shows that Raskolnikov finds redemption only when he takes responsibility for his actions. Jean-Paul Sartre, with his existentialism, reinforces, we are condemned to be free, and fleeing this freedom is choosing pain. Neuroscientifically, taking responsibility activates the prefrontal cortex, strengthening self-control and reducing anxiety. In 1944, Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Auschwitz, observed that even in hell, some prisoners found meaning by taking on small responsibilities, sharing food, comforting others. Under gray skies, among barbed wire, they chose to be more than victims. That choice saved them, not from the camp, but from despair. Today, we evade responsibility by blaming bosses, partners, or society. On social media, it's easy to blame the system while ignoring our choices. In careers, it's the employee who complains but doesn't seek new skills. To live this principle, take a choice. Identify an area of your life where you blame others and decide on an action to change it. Plan the future. Write 3 goals for the next 6 months and start with 1 step today. Reflect daily. Ask, what did I do today to build my freedom? Second principle, the discipline of purpose. Without purpose, you are a ship adrift. With purpose, you are unbreakable. Dostoevsky believed that man needs a why to endure any how. Frankl echoes this in Man's Search for Meaning, saying the purpose transcends pain. Neuroscience shows that clear goals increase dopamine release, building resilience. Without purpose, we fall into inertia. Odysseus, in his epic journey, faced sirens, cyclopes, and storms. But he never lost sight of Ithaca, his home. Every wave, every monster, was an obstacle to overcome for his purpose. Without it, he would have succumbed to despair in the vast sea. Today, a lack of purpose makes us seek validation in likes or distractions. It's the young person switching careers without direction or the adult living for the weekend. A clear purpose, whether to create, help, or learn, is what anchors us. To live this principle, define your Ithaca. Write a sentence that sums up your life's purpose and review it weekly. Align your actions. Choose a daily task that serves this purpose. Eliminate distractions. Cut 1 hour of social media per day and redirect that time to your goal. Third principle, the courage to confront the shadow. You do not overcome pain by ignoring it. You overcome it by facing it. Jung spoke of the shadow, the repressed aspects of ourselves. Dostoevsky, in Notes from Underground, shows that avoiding the shadow traps us in pain. Confronting it demands courage, but liberates. Neuroscientifically, facing fears reduces amygdala activation, decreasing anxiety. In 1519, Cortés burned his ships upon arriving in Mexico, forcing his men to face the Aztec Empire. There was no turning back. Under the scorching sun, with the smoke of the ships on the horizon, he turned fear into action. Confronting the shadow is burning the ships of self-pity. Today, we avoid confronting failures or traumas, preferring distractions. It's the employee who doesn't ask for feedback for fear of criticism, or the person who avoids therapy to not face truths. Confronting the shadow is saying, I am not perfect, but I am capable. To live this principle, write your shadow. List 3 fears or failures you avoid. Take a courageous action. Face one of these fears, like asking for feedback or starting a difficult conversation. Practice vulnerability. Share a weakness with someone you trust. 4th principle, compassion as strength. True freedom does not come from selfishness, but from the compassion that arises from strength. Dostoevsky, in The Brothers Karamazov, shows that redemption comes from connecting with others. Frankl observed that helping others in concentration camps gave life meaning. Neuroscientifically, acts of compassion release oxytocin, reducing stress and strengthening bonds. In the myth of Orpheus, he descends to the underworld to rescue Eurydice. His music, born of compassion, softens even Hades' heart. Orpheus fails, but his strength lies in trying to save another, not just himself. Today, compassion is seen as weakness, but it is the opposite. It's the colleague who helps a newcomer, the friend who listens without judgment, or the volunteer who gives time. Compassion frees us from the isolation of suffering. To live this principle, practice kindness. Do one altruistic act per day, like complimenting someone or donating something. Reconnect. Call someone you haven't spoken to in months. Be your own ally. Treat yourself with the same compassion you offer others. Today, we journeyed through the underground of the human soul with Dostoevsky as our guide. First, we uncovered the 4 pillars of addiction to suffering. Pain as identity, which defines us by what we suffer. The seduction of inertia, which traps us in the comfort of stagnation. The pleasure in self-destruction, which makes us sabotage our potential. And the attachment to misery, which we mistake for humanity. But we didn't stop there. We learned the 4 principles of liberation. The choice of responsibility, which makes us architects of our freedom. The discipline of purpose, which anchors us against storms. The courage to confront the shadow, which turns fear into strength. And compassion as strength, which connects us to the world and ourselves. Together, these 8 principles form a complete system, from the diagnosis of the prison to the key to freedom. This knowledge is a sharp blade. It can cut your chains or harm those around you. Use it to build a life of meaning, not to sink deeper into self-pity or judge those who still suffer. True mastery is not in dominating others, but in mastering yourself with compassion and purpose. Dostoevsky left us a warning, but also an invitation. Leave the underground. The world awaits you. In the comments, share which of the 4 principles of liberation you will start applying immediately and why. Your response may inspire others. If this journey of self-mastery resonates with you, subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the secrets of the human mind. Your like is a sign that this knowledge has value and needs to reach more people. Click now and join those who choose freedom.